Welcome back to the Cross Border Interview Podcast. My name is Christopher Brown, and we are live streaming via YouTube for the first time in 2021. Fifth time guest. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth time guest. The great, incredible Kellyanne MacNeil. I would introduce her title at her work, but as anyone who's listened to the first 4 episodes of With Me and Her, I refuse to get it right because I completely forget each time. But Kellyanne MacNeil, thank you so much for doing this. Greatly appreciate it.
Anytime. I'm excited. You're live on YouTube. This is great.
We are live on YouTube, and you are our first guest live on YouTube. This is going to go down in history as one of the greatest interviews ever because A, you and I are best friends, and B, you're just an awesome person. So anything you do turns to gold.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That's quite the compliment.
But before we get into the topic of what we are going to talk about today, I got to ask the question. July 1st came and passed. You were double vaccinated. How's life been with the best summer ever, according to our Premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney?
Life has been really good since my double vaccination. I will tell you this, I had a site injection reaction when I got it.
How?
So my arm went bright red and it got really, really warm. Um, and I turned around to, because all the nurses were having their lunch break behind me where I got my vaccination done. And I just turned around and said, my arm doesn't feel so good anymore, guys.
So
But
did they
they
have
were
to
awesome.
go ahead?
The, oh, okay. The nurses were fantastic. 2 of them came on the fly. One went to get a cold compress, but other than that, it was good.
Well, that's awesome. I'm happy for you, everyone who's listening to this, and for those who have not gotten their vaccination and are able to. I highly recommend that you do it. It protects
Me
yourself,
too.
but it also protects others who might not be able to get it due to some ongoing medical issues. So I highly
Mhm.
recommend that you get it.
And just because I reacted doesn't mean you'll react. Everyone is different, and all vaccines in Canada are safe.
What? I read Twitter. Everything's not safe. What are you talking about?
Don't go there.
No comment.
Don't go.
Exactly. Exactly. But Kellyanne, you have launched a brand new venture for you. And I've
Yes.
read it. For those who are watching this right now, the link to it is in the show notes. But take me through your new venture of your writing.
Well, what do you want to know first?
How did the idea come about? Because I know last time we had talked, and this was off the record, and we weren't
Mhm.
talking like this via the YouTube or the podcast. You were thinking about writing a book, but you've decided to forego the book and you've gone the blog route. So, what was the change there, and what is the blog all about?
Well, the change came from me. It was actually I can't even take credit. It was my mother's idea.
Ah, thank you, Miss MacNeil.
Mrs.
Mrs. MacNeil for her watching this right now. Thank you, Mrs.
She
MacNeil.
will. She will. So the main purpose of turning my book into a blog was to reach more people faster. Plus, I was really daunted by the publishing process. But that's just me, who I am personally, and I have so much to say that I wanted to say it all at once. Um, and I thought putting it out there on the interwebs, as my sister called them, would be much, much easier to get it out to many people across the board.
Now, I know I don't know your sister personally, but you are the oldest out of the three. I like how she calls it the interweb, like she's an 80-year-old woman.
Yes, both of them are fantastic, and they refer to it as the interwebs.
So, what is the purpose of the blog? You talk about it openly in the in the very first interview that you and I did way back, way back 2 years ago in September, yeah, I think actually in September 2 years
Yes.
ago, where we talked about a certain medical, not ailment, but what's the word I want to use here? And you probably know the word I'm trying to think of right now, but it can't come to the top of my head. But you talk about it openly in the very first episode, and you talk about it in the very first blog post you do as well. What is it?
Mm-hmm. So dyscalculia is it's a learning disability. It's commonly referred to as math dyslexia, and most of the time it's people think that it's kind of like letter dyslexia, where you reverse number signs, you reverse numbers, but it's transposed into more than just that. So dyscalculia for me affects my whole life. It affects how I read maps. It affects how I bank. It affects how I do my taxes. It affects literally everything. It even affects my left and right, and even typing in passwords. Like when I was logging into this, you should have seen me doing the one finger on the
Sounds
keyboard.
sounds like the way I type.
That's fair. But the reason for the blog is because no one knows what dyscalculia is. Everyone knows what, well, most people have an understanding, I should say, of what ADHD is, of what dyslexia is, what autism is, and what all other hosts of different disabilities are. But not very many people know what dyscalculia is. So that's one of the main purposes of my blog. The other purpose of my blog is to finally share my story and share my experiences with the world, so that people who have this disability don't feel so alone anymore. When I was a kid growing up with it, it was incredibly hard. There were very little resources. No one, including my educators, the educators I had, I should say, really understood. And I was bullied a lot because of my lack of an ability, even though I am a perfectly capable and functional person in the world.
You are more than capable and functional. You are an amazing human being. I just want to make sure you know, I just want to make sure you know that, because I think there's that is not said a lot these days to people. You are a perfect person, no matter what you have. And even with your, would you call it a disability or no? Like, how would you address it? Because I feel like there's a stigma around the word disability, and I don't want to use it if that's not the word I want to use.
I personally view it as just calling it what it is. If I'm perfectly comfortable, refer to it as what it is. Like, it takes its power away. You know, like for a long time, my parents wouldn't refer to it as a disability. And I'll talk about that in later entries. I don't want to give out spoilers before they come.
But that's what this show's all about. It's all about the spoilers. Come on, Kelly.
No spoilers. No spoilers. Actually, I did post blog topics already, so I guess I spoiled it myself. Really, when you think about it?
I was going to say, but I was like, nope, don't go there. She did not do that. But you do you, girl. You do you.
Thank you.
I got to ask the question. You said it's not a well-known thing that's out there that people are suffering with. Do you know the numbers? Do you know what the percentage of people in this country or in this world who do have it?
It's actually, because it's so hard to diagnose, according to the DSM-5, like, it's incredibly hard to diagnose because there are other factors that play into being bad at math. It's estimated that like 3 to 6% of people are walking around in this world undiagnosed, thinking they just can't do it. That's really how rare it is.
And I know you talked about math being one of the biggest issues, but how did the diagnosis happen for you? And I know you might say spoiler alert because you want to talk about it in your blog, but for those who are walking around out there right now who are saying, you know what, I do have a hard time with math as well, what are some of the tips and hints that you can say, you know what, if you think this is affecting you, these are the signs that you should look for, and if they are 1, 2, and 3, go talk to a doctor?
That's actually a really good question. So for me personally, it almost started back when I was a baby. My mother would try and encourage me to do you know those old wooden puzzles where the pig goes in this place and the cow goes in this place? You know, those
Yeah.
old wooden ones that we all had as a kid. I would always try to put the cow in the pig's place, and then the pig would try to fit in the cow's place. And no matter how many times we did it, I still wasn't getting it. I still wasn't getting it. But I knew my animals. So
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
So if your mother said pick up the pig, you'd be able to say, here's the pig. If your mom said
Here's
pick
the
up the
pig.
cow, go ahead.
Exactly. No, and that's exactly the point. If my mother said, Kellyanne, what's this animal? I could say, pig. And then she'd say, what sound does the pig make? Oink, oink. So I knew things, and my brain was developing. And now your listeners might wonder, well, why didn't your parents do anything about it? And that's a fair question. But if my mother had taken me to even a pediatrician or a specialist, they would have said, well, she's still growing and developing. She's just not ready to do that yet. It wasn't until I was in fourth grade that there was a noticeable impact. After I was tested, testing took about a year after. So within the public school system, there's a very long wait to be on the list for an educational psychologist. So even though my name was put forward to be tested, it took a year. So by the time I was tested in fifth grade, I was actually only at a grade 3 level math, but they had me in a fifth grade level class.
Oh, wow.
But my reading comprehension level was testing in lower high school in fifth grade.
Well, you are smart, so I do not put that past you. I can imagine in like probably grade 1, you were Hermione Granger walking around with about 5 books and going, I'm going to read this, and reading it.
Actually, funny that you mentioned grade 1. I actually couldn't see. And even though they had done eye tests at my elementary school then, I still wasn't seeing enough. So I wasn't actually doing very well in first grade until I got glasses.
Wow. Okay.
I
Well,
know.
that was a
I know.
bad joke that landed really badly to talk about you not being able to see in grade
okay.
1.
It's okay. It's okay. I've been wearing glasses ever since. I can see fine. It is what it is.
So what do you hope to achieve with the blog? What do you hope to achieve? I know you talk about, we talked about it briefly before the interview started here, but usually if you write this, you wanting to leave a message to somebody, or you're wanting to leave a message to people, or you're wanting to hopefully educate people. What is your goal about this? And that at the end of it, because we've all seen the blog, the post that you did of the chapters and how many chapters you have.
Mm-hmm.
What's the end goal?
The end goal is just to get my story out. I'm really tired of living in fear of my past experiences. And I think everyone can say that in some form they have, or say that in some way they have regrets from the past. But I actually live in fear of my experiences. I live in fear of them coming back to haunt me even after, even though it's been almost 25 years since I've lived through them. But this is my way of telling my story the way I want people to read it. So that's really the end goal. It sounds a little selfish, or that's how I see it, but in the end, it's all about taking control back of that part of my life. And I'm not using any names or putting the blame on anyone.
And
It's just my story, and it's how I walk through it.
Now you have done 4 posts as of airing this, as of us talking about talking. I can say you write with a style that is personal, that is deep, that is engaging, but also with a passion for the topic you're writing about. There's not that many blogs that I've read, and even journalists today that I can read, that have the same passion for their writing that you do. Mm-hmm. So I commend you for that, because it seems like this has been a long time coming and you've just needed an avenue to get the words out. Is that correct?
That would definitely be an accurate description. I really like that. Mind blown, Chris.
The doctor is in. To our 3 viewers who are watching this right now, welcome. This is the Cross Border Interview Podcast. We are live with Kellyanne MacNeil. We are talking about dyscalculia.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. It's like I know how to pronounce
Yeah.
things. It's like I know what I'm doing, and I'm a true journalist, knowing a little bit about a large amount of things. Thank you for joining us, and we are just doing a test run. We are starting to go live with all our interviews as of Friday, and Kellyanne has taken the time to help us out in this amazing new venture that we are doing here on the show. So Kellyanne, thank you so much for doing that. Greatly appreciate it once again.
Any time.
Oh, we're still not done. We're not done. I'm just making sure that you people know that you are thanked. As a good host, you should always thank your guest about every 5 minutes.
Of course. That makes perfect sense.
Now to the 4 people, welcome. But I want to take a moment and talk about the summer. You, in your last Instagram post, I was deeply hurt that you didn't drive the extra 300 kilometers to Calgary. I joke. I know. But you were in Edmonton, and you went on one of the things that my husband has been trying to force me to go on for a long time, a ghost walk. How was it?
It was so fantastic. Nadine Bailey, she's the one that does the research into the stories. She is an incredible, incredible narrator. She took us all around Old Strathcona, and which, of course, if my geography is correct, connects onto White Avenue, and we talked about the Princess Theatre. We talked about an old cigar building. We stood in an alley where there was a murder of a prostitute.
Awkward.
We sat on Edmonton's very first pet cemetery, right on the grounds. No one knew until she's like, and now you were sitting on a pet cemetery, and we all look at each other, and everyone like kind of shuddered a little bit.
So how did you hear about this? Because there are a lot of venues, there's a lot of avenues that you can do this, but you chose Nadine. So how did you hear about Nadine?
It was actually one of my friends. When Premier Kenney announced Stage 3 reopening, we thought to ourselves, we hadn't left Slave Lake in a few months. We were going a little squirrely. So we planned a girls' trip.
Okay.
Little. So we talked about different things too. We talked about going to the cat cafe on White Avenue to cuddle with some cats for an hour and have some coffee. We talked about doing the high level bridge tour on their little historical trolley, but it wasn't running until.
Oh, did we just lose Kellyanne? We might have just lost Kellyanne. I'm not 100% sure. This is the great thing about social media in today's age. Things like this could happen. But there she is. She is back with us, but she is muted now. There she goes. I was like, what just happened? And then you made me had to ad-lib for a few seconds. As the host, I appreciate that. These are the kinks that we're working out. These are the kinks that we are working out for the show. Sometimes I will have to ad-lib. So thank you so much for freezing your computer for a few seconds.
It wasn't even me, man. The internet connection dropped. It's all good.
When in doubt, blame TELUS or Shaw or whatever you have up there. But continue on. You were talking about how the open for summer, and on July 1st you were going a little bit squirrely, and you decide that you wanted to do something.
Yeah, so my friend and I decided to do a girls' trip. So we looked at the different things we could do. We tossed around ideas of doing a cat cafe on White, have some coffee, cuddle with some cats. I mean, you can't get much better than that. We talked about doing the high-level streetcar, which is always fun. I've done that one before, and I love it. I love it so much. But then she said, oh, Kellyanne, there's a ghost walk through Old Strathcona. Maybe we should do that. And Chris, you know me as a person. I am down for anything historical.
Yep.
And really, that's what won out.
So you went on this. Were you expecting as much knowledge? Because just from that opening statement about the prostitute, about the pet cemetery, you can tell that I know that seems like a weird two hitter there, but you mentioned them. I did not. But the prostitute and the pet cemetery. Were you shocked about the history that you learned on this walk? Because one of the things that I hear, and I'm always afraid to do on these walks, is you're going to go on these walks, and my opinion is you're going to go on these walks and you're not going to learn anything. Did you learn something?
I learned a ton. I know very little about Edmonton's history. Like we've mentioned, like I'm originally from Nova Scotia, so I know so much more about the East than I do about the West. And even if it was just the murders and the pet cemetery, it was still really, really fascinating because a lot of these buildings had been around since the 1800s, and I had no idea about that. So I walked away enjoying myself and learning something.
And now one other thing that I'm so impressed with you, and I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit because I love doing that as the host, but you are going back to school. You
Yes,
have
I am.
decided to continue your education, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are getting a degree or master's?
Certificate, actually. Just a
Certificate
certificate.
certificate in genealogy?
Yes, I'm working on becoming an accredited genealogist.
Why now? What made you decide, you know what? It's not like I have a lot to do under my belt. I've got a successful blog to write. I've got to work. I got to go learn about the horror stories to downtown Edmonton with prostitutes and pet cemeteries. So why not become a registered genealogist?
Um, Honestly, it was the pandemic. The third lockdown we went through was really hard because we're all, and I know it was hard for everybody. We were all sick and tired. But I've been thinking about becoming and taking genealogy courses for years because I love it. I love researching family history. I've done a good chunk of my own, and I would love to do that for someone else. Like following the pathways and figuring out this puzzle is something I love to do. So it was a little bit of the pandemic and a little bit of passion.
Oh, well, that's good. And it's a 2-3 year course that you're going to be doing, or one?
it's it's a 40 credit course with and each course you take runs from about 7 to 10 weeks.
Okay. Well,
So probably 2.5 to 3 years. That's my estimate because I'll
and
be
you're
working while I'm doing.
enjoying it so far?
So far, I just completed module number 2 of my first course today. So
Clap, clap,
thank you,
clap, clap,
thank
clap. Um,
you.
for the two viewers, I want to thank you for tuning in. This is the Cross Border Interview Podcast. Our guest right now is Kellyanne MacNeil. We're just talking about genealogy, her passions, prostitutes for some reason. Yes, I'm going to say that. Dead prostitutes downtown Calgary, or downtown Edmonton, I should say. And pandemic life, because now we are open for the summer. We can be less
Mhm.
squirrely. How are you feeling
Mhm.
about it? How are you feeling? Because I can say that I am still at unease to go out and
Mhm.
do the normal thing that most people do. I still wear my mask whenever I go out, even to the hospital. I was downtown Calgary sometime this week, yesterday, whatever
Mhm.
day it was, and I was wearing my mask, and people were still wearing
Mhm.
the mask. How is it up where you are? Are people still uneased, or is it the best summer ever?
I think people up here are fully embracing the fact that we don't have to wear masks anymore. And that's totally their prerogative. No judgment on my part. I did a test drive of no mask when I was in Edmonton this weekend. I thought I was really brave doing that, but you know what? It was totally fine. And I think having the two vaccines just adds that kind of layer of comfort.
And I completely agree. My partner does have his first. He's getting his second here shortly.
Mhm.
And while I still can't get my vaccine, I would highly recommend that, like I said at the beginning of the episode, anyone who hasn't, go get it, because the more people who get it, the better we have to get herd immunity, and that's all we want. And we want to get back to normal as much as normal is a
Absolutely.
still light at the end of the tunnel. We're probably not going to be there much for probably for a few more months. But you talked about Nova Scotia. Things are opening up again. Nova Scotia's back and forth of if they're open and if they're not open. Premier Rankin seems to not really know what he's doing down there, and blockades are happening at the New Brunswick border for some reason, but here we are. Are you hoping to get back sometime this year before the end of the year? Even like, I know you usually go back at Christmas. Are you hoping to get back and see the family again?
I absolutely am. I'm hoping to kind of bank some vacation and take a little extra at Christmas so I can see everybody. As of right now, Nova Scotia has if you have your 2 vaccinations, you don't have to quarantine for 14 days when you land anymore.
Oh,
so that's really good.
But yeah, how do you have to prove that? Do you know? Like, have they told you, hey, you just have to have your documentation? Because we do not have vaccine passports, according to the premier. He does not believe in them. So it is exactly, that's a political issue, and we don't need to talk about that. But how do you prove it? Do you have your documentation to say, hey, look, I've got my 2 vaccines?
As far as I am aware, you still have to fill in the Nova Scotia Safe check-in form about a week before you land. I haven't looked a lot into it because Christmas is still a long ways away. But as far as I know, you do have to show proof of your vaccinations, and I carry them actually on my phone. I won't show them to you, but they're on my phone.
Not that I would be able to see them anyway, due to the fact that the video is really not bad, but the glare is probably not going to do that.
Yeah.
Kellyanne, go ahead.
Okay. And as far as I know, you do have to have 1 negative COVID test, but don't quote me on that.
Well,
where that's done, whether it's a take-home kit or at the airport, I still don't know. So.
And like I said, Nova Scotia's in for a whirlwind right now because they're not really sure what they're doing, but that's here nor there. That's a political issue, and we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to talk about Kellyanne MacNeil, because Kellyanne, you are amazing. You have been
thank you.
Wonderful. I'm just looking at the time. It is 7:30, and I appreciate you taking your evening with us and test running this new program I have, because everything is via Zoom now, and with the technology, I feel like I need to stop moving because I'm getting like seasick watching myself. I'm like, woo! This is why we can't put this one out on the actual podcast list, because I just sound like I'm drunk, even though I have not taken a sip of alcohol in a long time.
You sound 100% sober. It is all good.
Good. Thank you so much. But Kellyanne MacNeil, thank you so much for doing this. It has been a pleasure. As always, you are one of my favorite guests to have on the show. And on December 10th, that's right, mark your calendar, December 10th, she will be back to talk. And I guess she has forgotten about it already. On December 10th, there's a national day that you wanted to do a special episode about. And hopefully by that time, okay, for those who are listening and watching, well, for those who are watching, what is December 10th, Kellyanne?
It's the National Day for Persons with Disabilities.
And Kellyanne has agreed without really agreeing, because she said, I'll still come on, way back when she thought it was in September.
Yeah, I know, right? Of all the things.
So I'm very happy that she will be back for a 6th episode. And then 2 weeks after that, she'll be back on for a 7th episode for our
year-end wrap-up.
Look at that! 7 episodes. You will be a staple of this show by the end of the year.
I may as well co-host with you now. Let's be honest.
Well, I think we need to start our own podcast where we just basically shoot the shit for no apparent reason. Pardon my French for those who are listening. I need to get a producer to scrub like swear words or have like a little bleep button every time I swear, because it's not like I swear a lot on the show. But Kellyanne, thank you so much for doing this. To the viewers, the link to Kellyanne's blog, I highly recommend you go out and look at it. Is in the show notes, which is in the description below. Go check it out. You will be very well educated in a thing that most people don't know about. So Kellyanne, thank you so much for doing that blog, but also for being the test run of the Cross Border Live podcast.
Happy to do it, Chris. This has been fun.